Hello, I'm Jan from The Upcoming. Nice to meet you. Pleasure speaking to you. Firstly, I wanted to ask you about how you discovered Miyazaki's films. I read it was in 2000. I wanted to ask, do you remember the first film of his you have seen?
Yeah, I remember very well the first film I've seen. It was Princess Mononoke. I was living in south of France, in Avignon. I was 15. I was so amazed in a way because it's an action film, and also there was so many things I did not understand, like the depiction of the nature as something really living, as something beautiful and frightening and dangerous and all mixed. It did not make that much sense for me, but I really loved it deeply. There was so much emotion, and now I work almost 2 years on Miyazaki's work, so I've seen the movie from another perspective, a bit more intellectual.
How did you try to understand that? How did you try to understand his perception, his sense of reality, and everything that he depicts in his films?
The purpose of the documentary is really to try to define the vision of the world of Miyazaki and the relation between humanity and nature. And for that, we came to see many intellectuals in a way, so philosophers, biologists, anthropologists, and that through them and some clips of Miyazaki's film that we try to go through the whole body of work and to put kind of words or concepts on what we can see.
And what do you feel when you're watching his films? Can you kind of explain that or explore it for us?
Yeah, when I see a Miyazaki's film, it always connect in a way with the reality. So you just after a film, you just wonder about life and what is relevant and where is the joy and where is the hope. And in many films, all of that is in the nature, just to be there around trees, at the sea, watching it, and having a lot of joy with it. So this is really what I get when I go out of a Miyazaki's film. And also you have these really strong characters and the way they behave and the decision they make, it's really inspiring also.
And do you have your favorite Miyazaki, or all of them are your favorites?
My favorite is really to embrace all of them. I really like this idea of you have those 11 films. I mean, maybe it's going to do a next one, but still, for a long time, it's going to be those 11 films. And there you have everything and how they connect to each other and how they connect with what's happening in the world at the time they were made and how they connect to Miyazaki's life. And I find it deeply interesting.
And is your affection towards his film the main reason you have decided to make this film, or were there other factors involved?
Yeah, the main reason is really I was watching again the Miyazaki's film as an adult with my children, and still it was so interesting. And it was so much about nature, and now we have the climate crisis, and the future seems so frightening, and we had we have the pandemic, and we had the waters going up, and so in a way the nature is it's frightening. So we have to question ourselves, our relation as individual, as society with the nature, with the natural world.
And how did your research look like? Did you find out something new or something you didn't know before? Did it allow you to understand those movies in a more proper way?
Yeah, my main document to make the film has two books. One is Starting Point, and the one is Turning Point, and that's some books where all Miyazaki's text and interview are summarized in it. Because he wrote a lot for newspaper, and I really love the way he writes. It's really simple and direct, and it's not dogmatic at all. And when I was feeling a bit lost, I was really wondering what does he think about those things. I was just going in those books and always finding some answers. And
Or was there anything quite surprising for you, or something that kind of reshaped the way you watch his films in the future?
yeah, what was surprising for us is maybe in France, I have sometimes the idea we always sit quite political. Miyazaki himself is really careful with what he says and is very complex and is really not dogmatic. So there is a lot of, he does not tell you what to do. which is really important. And that's what we tried to show also in the film. This kind of complexity, for example, is really about peace, and he's a pacifist, and at the same time he loves War Machine, and he loves to draw since his childhood some tanks and some planes, and that's just one aspect. But he really respects both those sides. He says there is nothing pure in a way. Sometimes it's both, and this is really special. It's really pretty unique.
You also met his son, and I wanted to ask, like, was this meeting special, and what did you learn from him? The more personal perspective as well.
Yeah, Goro is a really interesting figure because he did not study animation like his father. He studied landscape architecture and landscape, and he was building some parks. And at some points, they did build the Studio Ghibli, which is a very beautiful place. And at some point, Miyazaki said, we need a rooftop garden. And then they asked his son, to do it, Goro. And Goro came like that, and then they have the museum, and the son was director of the museum, and he conceived the museum with his father, and then there was a park. So slowly Goro came back at Studio Ghibli, and at some point they asked him to direct also a film, and he made it, and he made many films. And some of the film I really love. So that's really someone who comes from the nature to the cinema, which is it's totally interesting.
And why do you believe that his films are so successful? Because in the end, they explore all those traditions of Asian culture, and sometimes it's not very, for instance, accessible for the European viewer, but people are still interested in it and they want to see more. So I'm curious, what's your take on it?
Yeah, it's difficult to know why something's successful. At first, the first Miyazaki's film, Castle of Cagliostro, was really not a success. And then now we think it's masterwork for animation. Yeah, you have different aspects. For example, the technical aspect is so important. Like the animation is so good. You can really watch it and watch it and watch it. When we met Toshio Suzuki, the producer of Miyazaki, he explained to us quality of the texture of Totoro. When Mei, the little girl, touched Totoro, it seems so soft. And this is super, super, super difficult to make. I mean, you have to imagine it's 12 drawings per second. But still you have this feeling of something so soft. And I think one of the pleasure we have in Miyazaki's film is really like that.
Your film is a certain homage towards the Miyazaki, but I was curious, how did you balance the way you portrayed him to, for instance, not to make the documentary too sweet, for instance, or like too positive?
During the editing of the film, I understood you have those three timelines: what's happening in the world, what's happening in his life, and what's happening in the film. And you have to connect it. And sometimes it's more about him, and sometimes it's not about him, it's about the film. And also about Miyazaki, he's really a perfectionist, and he directs a film, so sometimes he's furious, and it's okay. He talks about it. Sometimes I'm so furious. It's in the book in Starting Point. So he's really honest about his feeling and his emotion and his desire to do it so well. Always when I was not sure what to say, I just was looking at what do we have as archive, what is it in this book Starting Point, and then it is like it is. So I just try to tell it like it is.
Before we wrap up, I wanted to ask, do you consider Miyazaki to be your master, or at least like an important figure? Or who is he for you, basically?
He's a great artist. There are many, many, many great artists, but still, I mean, he achieved something. For example, I don't know who I could compare it. Who is become so famous in a way? Is even a bit glamorous in a way, and still alive and respected as an artist, really intellectual, and also respected as an entertainer. Also, yes, that's.
Thank you so much for today.